Hey gamers, remember the Acolyte? You probably should, it hasn't been that long. Anyway, nobody really liked the show, and that's what led to a critic named Filmento to make a review on it. I hated his review, so I showed it to fellow commentator Communist Creeper, because they actually liked the Acolyte for some reason. We did a commentary on it on a group channel called Temporal Times, and so some guy called Thattwofacedcritic, who I have never heard of until now, covered the video. There's not much else to say, so let's begin.
Almost impossible to take interest in what the characters do or the events they get into.
Not to be cliche, but I'm 5 minutes in, and I already have a laundry list of problems. Mainly, why is this how the video begins? Why don't you give any context by explaining what you are covering? Obviously, I know the context, but that's because I am the subject. Nearly everyone else will be confused.
One reason for this is the lack of character specificity. The way we meet the hero is that she's working as an expert mechanic on this cargo ship, but her being a mechanic isn't a real thing. She uses her droid to fix one module, and that's pretty much it. The mechanic aspect doesn't come more into play, not in this first episode or the later ones, except for the droid maybe once or twice being used as a magical Swiss Army knife.
The droid would not be able to fix the ship without someone or something carrying it outside of the ship. The droid is only a tool droid that cannot really move on its own. You can say this is stupid and dangerous, and you're probably right, because it's a corrupt company that's using people in dangerous situations to possibly shave some cash. Also, yes, a tool is being used as a tool. And are you sure you could have done that? Do you know how this droid works?
Nice that you're interrupting him during his argument.
How is Creeper interrupting Film Man here? How does this detract from Creeper's argument? Are you actually going to explain the problem, or will you just merely suggest there is a problem, without providing any solutions? This point might be implying that something is being taken out of context, but if that's the case, provide the necessary context, and explain how the cut context is a detriment.
The only special thing about the hero to take interest in is that she's a former Jedi student who left the Order for reasons unknown. And even that's not a real thing.
Left the Order for reasons unknown. This is literally explained within the show. She got too attached to her witch cult and decided to leave because of that. You know, given how she was under the impression of her sister dying. Are you not going to mention this?
Osha lost both her mothers and her sister and blamed her sister for killing their family. She cannot let go of these attachments, and that caused her to leave the Order. Sounds pretty familiar.
It sounds just like Max Rebo! I guess Film Man forgot what poetry was and why it rhymes.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
She's not used.
Love that poorly cut off bit of Filmento's video. That was clearly left here by accident. It's not a big deal, but it looks sloppy and it's distracting, so I'm nitpicking it. Screw you if you hate my nitpicks.
You just sit through that entire point and be like, why is that point in the video? To show that their video was not structured well. Have Toganium make a point, an actually okay, decent argument, then have Creeper randomly add a 10-second interval that does nothing. They had just had Toganium's summary. It would have been totally fine with the jokes. Also, nice that you guys keep interrupting him during the middle of his point.
But Creeper did add something. They mentioned how Osha left the Jedi Order because of her family, including her mother and her witch coven being wiped out. Like, Anakin's attachments affect him, like him losing his mother, for example, and they lead him down a dark path by becoming Vader. Osha avoids that dark path by leaving the Jedi and becoming a mechanic. This is directly debunking Filmento, saying that Osha doesn't need to be a former Jedi for the series to work. As for the rest of the point, the poetry and why it rhymes bit was because Osha and Anakin are similar characters in the sense that their attachments lead to them leaving the Jedi Order. I joke and say that Osha is similar to Max Rebo because I think that's funny, but Filmento completely disregards how similar Anakin is to Osha, to which these similarities are intentional and prove that Osha needs to be a former Jedi in order for the series to work. I really hate the word normie, but I am so tempted to use it here, because your point makes me think that you don't know Star Wars as a series, which is fine if you don't, but that's why we research. makes me wonder why you covered this video specifically.
Using her Jedi skills or choosing not to use them because they're a trauma for her or something. No, she tries to use the Force once and fails, and that's it.
So believing that your sister died right before joining the Jedi is not a trauma? Get a load of this guy. Also, she probably lost touch with the Force because she has been separated from the Jedi for so long. That's definitely a possibility.
We see Osha have what seems to be panic attacks from the show. That sounds like she might have some trauma to me.
Is there a lore reason why Filmento forgot this? Is he stupid?
You see, this is a reference to Batman Arkham World.
The only
First, Togadium, did Anakin lose touch with the Force after he left the Jedi?
Well, no, because he was a Sith Lord by then. And using the Force was basically part of the job. You need to be strong in the Force to be a Sith. Whereas Osha is a mechanic, and therefore she doesn't need the Force. So she doesn't need to use it. And that's why she has lost touch with it. This is a really bad comparison, dude. Even if they are similar characters in other ways.
I find it funny she's supposed to have trauma from the Jedi because her sister died before he joined.
Don't you mean before she joined?
That's like someone's grandma dying before they go to Burger King and having trauma about Burger King.
That's pretty cool and all, but May's fake death was a result of her feelings towards the Jedi. May burns the place down because she doesn't like the Jedi. It's this event that happened because the Jedi want to pick her and her sister up. That makes Osha associate what she thinks was her sister's death with the Jedi, and therefore she leaves the Jedi. Have I said Jedi enough times to get this point across? That would be another reason for her to leave the Order. I probably should have mentioned this in the original video, but live and learn, I suppose. That doesn't suddenly make that Two-Faced Critic's point any better. There's nothing stopping him from researching the show.
Creeper. Oh no, she breathed. A dramatic way. She has trauma! Filmento, how did you not get that?
Heavy breathing is literally a symptom of anxiety. What are you even on about?
And of course, just making a random insult for no reason.
That wasn't a random insult for no reason. It was a reference to memes relating to the Batman Arkham community that Creeper and I think are funny. That's the lore reason why Creeper ended the bit by alluding to Arkham World, a rumored Arkham game that never came out because it doesn't exist. Plus, you insult us in this video, so you're really not one to talk about insults, but I'll expand on that later.
The tangible worth and content she offers by being a former Jedi is that people talk about it.
Osha joining the Jedi Order literally sets off the plot of the show. If Osha did not want to join the Jedi Order, then she would not have gotten into a fight with her sister May, and Soul and the other Jedis would not have attacked the witch cult she lived in. Literally, if she did not want to join the Jedi Order, the show would not have—
His argument actually does make sense, but Toganium's gonna ruin it.
Well, yeah. That's because I ruin everything. Osha and May are literally conduits of the Force. Osha being a former Jedi means something.
You're looking for a former Jedi.
Your own clip proves you wrong. They are not just talking about Osha being a former Jedi. They are bringing this up because they know a former Jedi murdered a Jedi. It's really cool how you took this out of context, mate.
Toganium, what are they doing in that clip? Oh yeah, talking about it. They really disprove anything.
Technically, they are talking about it, but Filmento acts like they are talking about it without much of a point. That all they do is talk about it. They do talk about Osha being a former Jedi, but because May is believed to be dead, they believe that it must have been Osha who killed Carrie Ann Moss's character, which is the catalyst for the series. Therefore, Osha being a former Jedi does play into the show's narrative. Her being a former Jedi is how the current Jedi know who she is because she exists in their databases. And since they know who she is, that's how they find her. So they talk about Osha being a former Jedi because they have to in order for the story to progress. Filmento goes on to say that Osha's backstory as a Jedi is superfluous and she could have been anyone else, which includes anyone who isn't a former Jedi. He uses Jyn Erso, who was the protagonist of Rogue One, specifically as an example because she is not a former Jedi. And in that film, she's mainly wrapped into the plot only because her father was an architect on the Death Star, and she was once a prisoner of the Empire. Filmento's Jyn Erso comparison is something I covered in the original video, by the way.
She's just a character, and she could be swapped out with almost any other character without her scenes in practice changing at all. The one and only reason we should find interest in her and her scenes is because she's the hero of a Star Wars show. So look at me and be amazed.
No, I don't think I will.
She could not be swapped out for anyone else, as most people are not twins, and most people are especially not made out of the Force. My overall point is, though the characters do talk about Osha being a former Jedi, it is still something that is vital to the show, and it cannot be removed from the narrative, unlike what Filmento says. Like, I think The Acolyte is a bad piece of television. I think it's a contrived idiot plot with bland characters besides the guy from Squid Games. But Filmento saying that Osha doesn't need to be a former Jedi in order for the show to work, that tells me he must have the mind of Henry Mollison, because only someone with no working memory could make that mistake, and you cannot defend it.
And what Filmento is saying is that she doesn't bring any, ability, she doesn't bring any skills, she doesn't bring anything that could be from her training. That's what Filmento is arguing, not that her being a former Jedi means nothing in the story.
Is this guy familiar with Star Wars? I'm genuinely asking. How do you hear Filmento say that Osha doesn't need to be a former Jedi for the story to work, and think that he's still talking about skill? By the way, despite you criticizing me for cutting off Filmento, in reality, you're the one who's taking me out of context, because you completely neglect the point about the Jyn Erso comparison until it comes up. Also, this is the most I've ever thought about Jyn Erso in my life. Despite being the lead of an entire movie, she's such a forgettable character. I vastly prefer K2SO.
You really passed your trials.
I made 9.
The major concern about admitting you to the Order was your
She was a devoted Padawan. I trained her.
How do you know this former Padawan?
I was trained to be a Jedi. When that didn't pan out, those skills aren't exactly,
Me when I get angry at dialogue scenes because I have the attention span of a 5-year-old.
But you ever heard of not throwing stones from glass houses? With this argument, your house is dust. Both you and Oganium have been interrupting him in the middle of his arguments. People with low attention spans now?
I like how you keep resorting to this point without ever explaining how we are doing this, and how it is actively a detriment.
Altogether, the hero in practice isn't an expert mechanic or former Jedi or anything. She's just a character, and she could be swapped out with almost any other character without her scenes in practice changing at all. The one and only reason we should find interest in her and her scenes is because she's the hero of a Star Wars show. So look at me and be amazed.
No, I don't think I will.
She could not be swapped out for anyone else, as most people are not twins, and most people are especially not made out of the Force.
Also, this clip is weirdly made. I think he's trying to say he won't look at her, but it comes off as him saying he won't 20 million views. That makes no sense. Also, she never said to look at her. You just put the words into her mouth and then said you would not do it. Makes me think you're looking at her.
In other words, saying, "No, I will not do this," only makes sense if someone told you to do something.
From now on, both of you might as well be rocks. How thick in the head both of you are.
What was that thing about random insults earlier?
Like Toganium said, character, not actor, are different, you know. Genuinely confuses me how you hear him say the only reason why we should find interest in her character is because she's the hero of a Star Wars play. Oh, look at me and be amazed. Hear that, see the visual gag, take the visual gag as literally as possible. Now not connect the visual gag to what he was saying a second before, and try to make fun of Filmento for looking at her. Honestly, it's pretty pathetic.
Creeper was criticizing the joke because Filmento's reply to Amantha Stenberg's song makes no sense. That's completely different from taking it seriously. I have no idea how criticizing the joke and taking it seriously are one and the same. I guess all comedy critics are out of a job now.
I mean, even the Jedis here are so void of special specificity that the main reason you can even tell them apart is because they're all different colors. No Mace Windu to bring attitude, no Anakin to bring individuality.
First off, it sounds strange to call people of different races different colors. Second off, these characters are different. Sol is an individual who does not always listen to the Order.
Vernestra, you know, the green one, is incredibly corrupt. She framed Sol for a murder in order to keep the Sith coming back a secret.
Jackie is a Padawan who tries to be mature to be taken seriously.
This is why she usually asks for permission before speaking.
And Yord's Yord.
The Yord Horde was formed for a reason.
Yord for Chancellor.
May I ask a question? If I raise my hand, is that my personality? Because that's what you're saying here.
I mean, it can be in the right context. Like you raising your hand because you want to know more about something, thus showing curiosity.
So, oh no, he said color instead of race. Oh wait, Toganium said green guy not even 10 seconds later. So, how does scheming show a personality? Please tell me how that shows a personality.
The only one of them that does scheme is Vernestra, who actively keeps the Sith's return under wraps for some reason. Meaning that she's a no-good 2-bit double-crossing snake, which I explain in the original video by calling her corrupt. That does establish a personality by telling us she doesn't care about the Order or the well-being of the Jedi.
It's the same mellow, sleep-inducing official personality with them all. The differences don't go beyond one being a bit awkward. Oh wow, super interesting.
Yord, put your clothes on.
If I had a nickel for every time you proved your own point wrong with a clip, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, yada yada, you know the meme.
Also, maybe we could see possible personalities of the characters if we could hear them. A good amount of the clips within this video are silent and we don't ever get to hear them.
Titanium, please tell me. Well, this proves him wrong. As a sentence as ambiguous as put your clothes on owns someone's personality.
It's because Yord, being the character who's this goofy, does objectively give him a personality. And Filmento is just disregarding that. Though I will admit, I should have explained this. That's on me. Anyway, that's about all there is to the video. I usually don't give final thoughts, but I do want to address the idea that he might be a troll. And he might not be all that serious. Though I don't like his video, I did think one of the points was good. That might not seem like a lot, but I've seen videos with no good points. I've even made videos with no good points. Plus, though I obviously don't like his points overall, this did get me to look at my original from a more critical perspective. I'll admit, not only did I drop the Acolyte halfway through, but the research I did for that commentary was minimal, and I should have done better. Furthermore, I do think some of my subject's points could have worked in a different context. Honestly, this video wasn't even that bad. All I really have to say is listen better and do more research, and maybe get a better attitude, I guess. In terms of final thoughts, this is what you'll get from a lot of commentary. Really. Anyways, I'll see you next time. Goodbye, gamers!